Good afternoon. This afternoon we have the pleasure of talking with Kathy Crowe and her experiences growing up or being involved in the parish. Kathy, when did you start coming to St. Joe's?
I first started coming to St. Joe's in September of 1981. I had been living in Montreal. In fact, most of my growing up years were in Montreal. But I had a brother who lived here in Ottawa, and came a time after I'd finished university and had done my nursing. I'm a nurse by profession. I used to come and visit him from time to time, and I just loved Ottawa. So I said, I think I want to move to Ottawa. So I moved to Ottawa. So part of coming to St. Joe's was finding a church community that would be similar to the one I had in Montreal. So while I was there, I was a member of the campus ministry at Loyola College, which is now part of Concordia University, but at that time it was Loyola College. And it had a very special atmosphere there that I was reluctant to leave. So when I moved here, my brother, who also knew Loyola campus, said, well, St. Joe's is going to give you what you had there. So I came here, and I always participated in singing, glee clubs at school, and certainly in the choir at the campus ministry. So the natural place for me to start was with the choir, and there happened to be a 5 o'clock small group of people that sang. So I approached them and said, I'm new here, I'd like to join. They said, welcome, come. so that's how I ended up here. Yeah.
Super. Now, I met your mom, Kitty.
Yes.
But were your parents involved in St. Joe's?
They were. They came after I came here. So when I moved here, my dad was still working. He worked for Air Canada, and his placement was in London, England. So when he was retiring, that's where he retired from, and trying to determine where were they going to spend their retirement, because David was my brother David and I were both here. David by that time had 2 children, so the grandchildren were here. So they thought Ottawa would be the place that they would come, and so St. Joe's was naturally the place they came as well.
Super. One thing I've always been amazed with is the ability to teach children anything and how they respond. So how was it in the music area? How did the children respond to music instruction?
Well, it's not that challenging because children are so open, and they learn so readily. And I particularly love children. I've always enjoyed working with and being with children. And at the time, before I started working with them as the choir director for them, there was, I think Judy Crowe was her name. I think she had them. And when she retired, Michael Coder took over for a short period of time while he was finishing university. Now, Judy and Michael are both musicians. I'm not a trained musician. I'm a musician, but not a trained musician. So I didn't bring to these children the theory of music the way they would have. But I think what I brought to them and hoped to bring to them was the love of music and the love of singing. So when I knew that Michael was going to be leaving, I approached Jane Williams, who was our music director at the time, and I said, Jane, if ever you're looking for help at the children's choir, I really enjoy doing that. So she said, great. She called together a meeting of all the parents of these children and invited me to be there and introduced me as the next choir director of the children's choir, which was not quite what I had signed up for. But I said, okay, fine. But working with children is just they're open and they're enthusiastic, they learn easily, and they're just so much fun to be with, yeah.
And one of the disadvantages you may have had was that when we had our St. Joe's schools, the religious sisters used to teach music in schools.
That's right.
And so they helped to develop the ability of the students to learn music before they even came to participate in parishes.
That's right. Well, many of these children would have as well, through their own schools and through their parents. There was one notable family, for example, the O'Cranick family, that they were just brought up in music, so they were all very skilled musicians. So many of these children did have some musical background already.
Good.
Yeah.
Now, did these children perform in any outside activities outside the parish?
They did. there were 4 events that we did, actually. 2 of them were secular, so we were invited to sing the national anthem at and forgive me, I'm not a football. Rough Rider, thank you. It was the Ottawa Rough Riders. So we were invited to sing the national anthem for one of their games, which they were so excited to do. And the next one was an event that your brother Gary had organized as a fundraiser for the Women's Center, and it was out at the racetrack.
Okay.
So this is a fundraising dinner, and the children were invited to go and do the national anthem there as well.
Great.
But as on top of that, I had 2 colleagues at work who were both involved in their own parishes, knew that I was, working with these children in the choir, and one of them, in fact, had even come to hear at the Christmas Mass the children singing. And she said, my parish would so benefit from hearing these children. So we made a road trip out to Carleton Place to St. Mary's Church in Carleton Place, and were the musicians for one of their masses one Sunday. And then another colleague who was at, I believe, Blessed Sacrament or Good Shepherd Parish out in Orleans, out on Innes Road. And she asked me the same thing. They didn't have a very robust music ministry, particularly for children. She said, would they come out and be our music ministry for this Sunday? I said, sure. And we did. It was great. They loved it, and I think the parishes both liked it, and it was good.
Yes, the children's choir always performed very well in St. Joe's.
They did.
And a lot of parishioners just love to go to the 9:30 Mass.
To hear them.
Done.
Do you know, beyond just the singing, I think what was really important for the participation of these children in that choir was to give them a sense of participation. The Mass is a very adult thing. It's not a kid's thing. We have children's liturgy, and right now, this has evolved over time too, a little procession that they do. But you see the enthusiasm that they have because they're doing something, rather than just sitting and having to be quiet for a time that's very boring to them and that they don't really even understand. But this ability to participate in that way, I think, really was important to them. It gave them a sense of what contribution they could make, even in their small way, to the parish. And any way that we can encourage children to participate, I think, is a good thing. And music is just such a natural way to do that.
And we helped out in the parish in the sense that we brought in the St. Michael's Boys Choir twice in the 1990s.
Mm-hmm.
And that was nice for the kids to see people perform in large group settings.
That's right, yeah.
Now, you've also been involved in the baptismal ministry after
Yes.
you're finished with your choir ministry.
That's right.
How did you come about joining that ministry?
Well, that was a very interesting series of events. So it happened in the time that Deirdre Pike was here as our pastoral associate, I think in the, you would be able to tell me.
98 to 2001.
There you go. So Deirdre was in charge of the most of the liturgical faith formation ministries, and she had a very active group of people that were part of the baptism preparation team. And I don't remember exactly why it was that she invited me to go one day. I think it was because I sang in the choir and because I, had the ability to sing. She wanted me to sing a particular acclamation, which I now do in baptism preparation. So that's how she hooked me into it. so then I said, sure, I would go and do that. And so I just kind of tagged along with this group, and then eventually the group, because they've been doing it for some time, and their children were older, and it was time for them to move on to other things, it dwindled down to just me. And then there were a few other people that came in and out of the baptism ministry. Right now, I'm very fortunate to have George and Joan Lajeunesse who are participating. COVID, of course, has made a huge difference to everything, so things are very different, but they will come back and be participating again. And, we always are open to anyone else that wants to. It's a very, very fun and rewarding ministry to be part of. Well, first of all, it's children. So, and as I said, I love children and babies. That there's nothing better. But just to have an opportunity to talk to parents who are bringing their children for baptism and helping them to kind of explore their own faith, and for me to explore my own faith too, because I learn things every session that I do. I learn an insight about myself, or I learn something from these parents. It's a really fun ministry to be part of. So we do a baptism preparation, and then of course I help with the coordination of the actual event at the time.
Now, if somebody was interested in joining this ministry, should
Just
they
get
get
in
in
touch
contact
with
with
me,
you?
sure, yeah.
Kathy Crowe.
That's right.
Now, besides these ministries, Kathy, you served on parish council twice,
Yes,
and you served on the liturgy committee.
yes.
With all that background experience, is there anyone or any people who you feel were your mentors or people that impressed you a lot?
Do you know, that's a really interesting question and a very hard one to answer because there's so many. From music, I'd say, and probably liturgy, I would say Jane Williams was a huge influence. Didn't always agree with everything that she had to say or do, but she was an amazing, amazing person, both musically and liturgically. So I think I learned a lot from her, and I did admire what she brought here and what she was able to accomplish with her choirs. But apart from that, you know, there's so many people that contribute so much to this parish that each of them, from the very high profile ones to the very low profile ones, I have to admire just for their dedication, for their willingness to contribute to the parish. That's the one thing I think about St. Joe's that I haven't always experienced elsewhere, except for at the Belmore campus at Loyola, where people are here and contributing because they want to. They're coming to Mass on Sundays or Saturday afternoon because they want to be here. They want to be in communion with everyone. There's not as much a sense of obligation to be here as it is a desire to be part of the liturgies. And I think that's one thing that St. Joe's really does encourage, is that really active participation of the assembly in what we do week to week. So in all of that, I would say my inspiration comes from everyone who contributes, because they each contribute in their own way. They each contribute strengths and skills that I either don't have or I really admire. And I think it's because of that we have the liturgies that we do and the parish that we do.
Well, Kathy, thank you very much. This has been a very enjoyable interview.
Yeah,
And thank you for all your contributions to the parish.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thank you.